Hey man, here's the brutal truth. No one teaches you growing up. Not in school, not from your parents, and not even from your friends until it's too late. You won't truly understand women or yourself in the context of loving them until you've bled emotionally. Until you've poured your heart into someone and watched her walk away like it meant nothing. Until you've loved with sincerity, with loyalty, with every fiber of your being, only to realize that what you thought love was isn't how it always works, especially not now. The deeper you go into understanding women, their emotions, their patterns, their contradictions, the harder it becomes to love them the way you used to. The fantasy fades, the fairy tales crumble, the sweet lies about soulmates and forever lose their glow, and you're left staring at something raw, confusing, and deeply human. You begin to see things you didn't want to. You start recognizing how often what women say isn't what they truly mean, how their emotions shift like weather, how desire isn't rooted in stability but in stimulus, in how you make her feel moment to moment. You realize that her love can be real in one breath and gone in the next. Not because she's evil or manipulative, but because she's driven by something most men weren't prepared to understand: emotional fluidity. And when that truth hits, when the illusions break, something inside you changes. You don't hate her, but you can't go back to loving blindly. You can't give recklessly. You can't invest like a fool, hoping sincerity will be enough. Because now, your eyes are open. There was a time when you took her words at face value. When she said forever, you believed her. When she cried, you thought it meant she cared deeply. You thought loyalty was the foundation and passion was the proof. You were naive. But man, there was peace in that innocence. You were happy in ways you didn't even realize until they were gone. And then she cheated, or ghosted, or simply lost interest with no explanation, and the mask slipped. That's when the shift began. That's when you started watching instead of reacting, studying instead of assuming, listening to what women say, but paying more attention to what they do. You began to notice patterns, how often love meant right now instead of always. You started separating fantasy from reality, and that process hurts, because now you see it clearly. Love, for many women, is not a commitment. It's a current. It flows, but it doesn't always anchor. It's tied to how she feels in the moment, not the depth of what you've built together. And no, this awareness doesn't turn you bitter, but it makes you cautious. It makes you measured. You stop leading with your heart and start filtering with your mind. You see how quickly her devotion can shift, how she can worship you one day and barely respond the next, how she can say you're her everything, but text another man before your scent has even faded from her clothes. You notice how so much of modern love is tied to attention, how validation has become currency. And again, not because women are broken, but because they've been raised in a world that taught them their worth is based on how desired they are, not how deeply they love. And suddenly, love feels less like a sacred bond and more like a temporary transaction, a deal built on vibes, not values. Quick break. Close your eyes for a second. Picture her, the girl you've always wanted. Feel what it would be like to actually have her. Now open your eyes, because here's the truth. Right now, you're invisible to her. You're getting outcompeted by guys with more money, better looks, higher status, and stronger game. You're playing a rigged game, and you're losing, but I've spent the last 35 years mastering this, studying, testing, and finally finding the secrets to get the girls I always wanted. You want to stop getting ignored? You want her chasing you? Then you need to wake up and act. Click the link in the comments if you are truly committed and take the first step toward becoming that guy. Few spots left. Be fast or miss out your last chance to make her yours. Let's get back to it. And here's the most painful part. Once you've seen this, it becomes harder to unsee. Your heart still wants to believe, but your mind won't let you fall so easily. You begin to understand how deeply culture has shaped this mess, how modern society tells women to chase their feelings, follow butterflies, prioritize excitement over stability. You start seeing the subtle programming, the way movies and music praise her for leaving a good man if the spark fades, but shame a man for doing the same. You witness the double standards, how masculinity is labeled toxic when it's steady, yet celebrated when it plays games. And when you understand this imbalance, something inside you breaks. not in weakness, but in awakening. You no longer chase, you no longer romanticize love the way you once did. And yes, a part of you grieves for that old version of yourself, the one who believed that love was enough, that if you just showed up, stayed loyal, gave your best, she'd stay. But now you know better. You've seen men who did everything right, faithful, present, devoted, still get left for someone who offered nothing more than mystery, timing, or a few well-curated Instagram photos. You've seen women throw away years of building in a weekend because it didn't feel right anymore. And each one of those stories chips away at your belief in forever. You stop putting her on a pedestal. You stop seeing her as the prize. You stop hoping that being a good man is all it takes. And when that happens, your ability to love the way you once did, with complete vulnerability, quietly dies. You still care, you still feel, but now it's filtered through awareness. You see that women don't fall for logic, they fall for feeling, for presence, for the energy you bring, sometimes for illusion. The man who can create that emotional experience, the one who triggers that fantasy, he becomes the object of her obsession. But the moment he stops, the moment he becomes predictable, the energy fades, the connection dims, and she pulls away, not because of something you did, but because her emotions shifted. And that's when you realize it's not personal, it's just how things are. And you, the man who has learned, who has awakened, now walk differently. You're detached by default, not because you're broken, but because you're aware. You see through things now. You notice the games, the inconsistencies, the emotional turbulence, and sometimes that clarity doesn't feel like power. It feels like loneliness, like a weight, like a curse, and then it starts to become unmistakable. You begin to see it in the smallest moments, in the way she argues, not to find truth or understanding, but to feel power. It's not about resolution, it's about reaction. It's about seeing if she can stir your calm, pull you out of your frame, and test the strength of your center. You realize her tests aren't signs of insecurity, they're invitations to dance in the push-pull dynamic that makes her feel alive. You see it when she cries, not just from pain, but from guilt she expects you to soothe. She'll hurt you, and then break down, needing your comfort like she's the one who was wounded. You'll notice it when she leaves. Not as a final goodbye, but as bait. She walks away and waits for your chase, not because she wants distance, but because your pursuit makes her feel wanted again. And at some point, you stop reacting. Not out of apathy, but because you finally understand. You get it. You even empathize with it. Because you know, deep down, she doesn't fully see it either. She's just responding to the emotional wiring that society, trauma, culture, and even biology layered into her. So you don't judge it, but the kind of love you once had in your heart, the blind kind, the all-in, ride or die, romantic without boundaries kind, that love becomes harder to summon, because now you love with eyes open, and open eyes come with boundaries, with caution, with limits. You no longer fall apart when she pulls away. You don't spiral when she shifts her tone, or grows distant, or loses interest. You've seen the pattern enough times now to know it before it fully forms. You predict it, you observe it, you detach from it, you recognize the cycle. She gets bored of good men, loses interest in the stable ones, gravitates toward chaos, drama, instability, not because she wants pain, but because emotional intensity feels like passion to her. She says she wants peace, but her actions betray her craving for tension. She says she wants safety, but she lights the match that burns the bridge. And that's when you realize, this isn't about logic, it never was. It's about addiction, emotional addiction, the highs and lows, the tension and release, the roller coaster. She isn't chasing love, she's chasing a feeling, and the moment that feeling fades, so does her affection, so does her interest, so does her effort. And when that sinks in, when you've watched it happen one too many times, your approach changes. You become less excitable, less swept away, less willing to dive headfirst into the deep end. Not because you're jaded, but because you've measured the cost. And here's the part that no one really talks about. When you reach this level of awareness, this depth of understanding, it can feel isolating Because now, when you walk into a room, you don't just see people, you see through them. You notice the hidden motives, you sense the energy shifts, the smiles feel calculated, the texts feel transactional, the flirtation feels hollow. The girl who laughs a little too loud at your jokes, she wants to be noticed. The one who plays it cold, she's testing for a reaction. The one who messages you late at night out of nowhere, she's not seeking connection, she's seeking distraction. And once you've seen all that, once you truly understand it, it becomes harder to connect because you can't pretend anymore. You're too grounded to play games, too self-aware to be manipulated, too emotionally disciplined to be pulled into surface-level affection. And the irony, understanding women on this level doesn't make you bitter. It doesn't make you resentful. It actually makes you more compassionate. You stop blaming them for what they don't even realize they're doing. But that compassion doesn't mean closeness. It means distance. You learn to love them, gently, kindly, but from afar. Because now you know what their love is often rooted in, how you make them feel in the moment, not who you are in your essence, not the loyalty you offer, not the sacrifices you make. And when you stop delivering that emotional high, when the roller coaster ends, the warmth fades. Not always instantly, but inevitably. She won't say it outright, but her energy changes. Her touch loses softness, her excitement dulls. The light in her eyes dims, not from something you did, but from something she no longer feels. And you, the man who's learned, who's watched this unfold before, won't beg. You won't chase. You won't fall apart. You'll simply take a quiet step back, not to hurt her, but to protect yourself, because you already know the next chapter. You've read this story too many times. You stop believing that love is enough to keep a woman. You've seen the deeper truth. What keeps her is respect, polarity, emotional distance, a masculine center that doesn't sway with her storms. Not gifts, not compliments, not constantly reminding her how much she means to you. Those things are appreciated, but they don't anchor her. They don't hold her interest the way tension and mystery do. And that's what makes it harder. Because once upon a time, love was a language you spoke with innocence, with heart. You didn't know there were codes to crack, rhythms to master, dynamics to hold. You thought love was simple. Show up, care, be loyal. That was enough. But now, it feels like a system you have to manage, a delicate balance of presence and distance, emotion and restraint. And every time you lean in fully, every time you let yourself love without armor, she pulls back. Not because she wants to lose you, but because to her, comfort feels like boredom, and she's wired, often unconsciously, to feel alive through tension. So you adapt, you evolve, you learn to love with your mind before your heart. You slow down, you assess, you observe, you lead with your frame, not your feelings. You study her energy before investing your own. And yes, that keeps you safe, but it also keeps you removed, even from the good women, even from the ones who genuinely care, because your scars aren't just emotional, they're psychological. You've been rewired by experience, reprogrammed by heartbreak. You don't see her as an angel anymore. You see her as human, beautifully flawed, emotionally complex, and often inconsistent. You don't rush in anymore. You don't hand out your devotion like candy. You filter, you test, you watch. And the women who recognize this self-control, some rise to meet it. Others call it coldness. They call you emotionally unavailable because they don't understand that your distance isn't indifference. It's wisdom, it's protection, it's the price you pay for seeing reality clearly. There's a heavy weight that settles on a man when he finally sees the truth. Not the truth he was taught in fairy tales or soft advice columns, but the one life revealed to him through bruised pride, sleepless nights, and a heart cracked open too many times. It's the truth that attraction doesn't follow logic, that love doesn't always favor loyalty, kindness, or character, that a man can offer everything, his soul, his time, his presence, and still be left behind. Not because he wasn't enough, but because he was stable in a world that romanticizes storms. And once you see it, you really see it, you can't go back. You can't unknow what experience branded into you. You start to notice the patterns, that it's rarely the calm, grounded man she clings to. It's the man who keeps her emotional nervous system activated, the one who gives just enough, then pulls back, the one who seems emotionally unavailable, who triggers her doubts and lights her insecurities on fire. And somehow that fire becomes mistaken for passion. That chaos becomes confused with chemistry. It rattles you at first, because if being consistent, loyal, and emotionally available pushes her away, then what the hell was the point of everything you were told a good man should be? You start questioning everything. Was I truly loved? Or was I just cast in a fantasy she was playing out in her mind? That question doesn't fade. It follows you, echoing in the quiet. You replay conversations, reanalyze her silences, rethink all the effort, the patience, the emotional investment that was met not with appreciation but withdrawal. You begin to realize how your warmth only sparked desire when it was rare, how your presence only meant something when she had to earn it, not when you gave it freely. And so begins the internal shift. You stop chasing, you stop explaining, you stop fighting for the attention of someone still fighting battles with herself. You stop trying to be her peace when she's still in love with her chaos. You stop offering clarity to someone addicted to confusion. You stop saving because you finally understand some women don't want to be saved. They want to feel, and feeling for many means friction. Now you see clearly, she doesn't see your calm as strength. She sees it as lack of excitement. She doesn't see your availability as a blessing. She sees it as something to test. And the more you try to love her without conditions, the more she pulls back. Because the idea of being fully loved terrifies someone who has never learned to love herself. You don't get mad anymore. You evolve. You become selective. Not cold, not bitter, not closed off, but precise. You start measuring a woman's love not by her words but by her emotional consistency. You stop falling for apologies and start watching patterns. You stop mistaking closeness for connection. You stop hoping she'll change and instead ask yourself why you keep choosing women who need to. You guard your energy like your life depends on it because emotionally it does. No longer do you feel the need to be the healer, the fixer, the savior. You leave that role behind. You learn that loving someone isn't supposed to feel like emotional labor. It's not supposed to be a puzzle. It's not supposed to feel like you're trying to prove your worth every damn day. Real love is calm, safe, quiet in its strength. But that type of love only comes when you change first. You begin walking a different path, not because you gave up on love, but because you finally understand it. You see how much of modern connection is built on performance, not presence. How many women confuse emotional intensity with emotional intimacy. How many chase feeling something rather than building something. And when the high wears off, so does their commitment. It's a lonely awakening. You walk into rooms and hear beneath the words. You feel the intentions behind the smiles. You recognize the girl who flirts because she's empty, the one who texts late because she's bored, the one who says, "I miss you," when what she really means is, "I miss how you made me feel." And none of it moves you anymore, because you've stopped chasing feelings, you've started chasing peace. You crave stillness, you crave depth, you crave emotional maturity, not just beauty. And as that craving deepens, your world gets quieter, the noise falls away, the games no longer entice, the drama no longer pulls, the breadcrumbs of affection no longer fill you. Because once you've been starved of real love, you no longer settle for emotional scraps. Now, when a woman distances herself, you don't flinch, you don't beg, you don't chase, you observe, you give her space to reveal her truth. You watch the way her energy shifts, the way her interest fades once the thrill is gone. And instead of taking it personally, you take note. Because you finally realized it was never about you. It was about what you refused to be. Unsteady, uncertain, unsafe. And here's the part most will never understand. Understanding women deeply doesn't make you hate them. It doesn't make you resent them. It just makes you protect yourself from the parts of them that aren't ready to meet you where you stand. You no longer love with blind trust. You love with clarity. You assess before you invest. You wait before you open. You withhold before you give. Not as a strategy, but as self-preservation. Because now, love isn't a game for you. It's a sacred space, and not everyone is allowed in. And still, beneath the layers of discernment, beneath the boundaries and quiet strength, you remain open, but only to the woman who brings peace, not pressure, who brings calm, not questions, who meets your grounded presence with reverence, not resistance. Until then, you choose solitude over seduction, growth over gratification, mission over manipulation, because this version of you wasn't born overnight. He was forged through disappointment, through silence, through becoming everything you once looked for in someone else. Now, you walk differently, not out of fear, but because you finally know your worth. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. If this message spoke to you or gave you something to think about, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new drop. I've got more real talk, more growth, and more power coming your way. So stay locked in. And if you're going through something right now, just remember, your silence can say more than 1,000 words ever could. Take care of yourself, keep rising, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.